Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism, narcissistic relationships, healing from narcissistic relationships, making sense of it. Because something a lot of people are saying to me is like, oh, now that I understand this, I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere now. So it's not a good feeling, right? But you get it and you're like, okay, I saw it in this person, and that person, and that person. But do you feel that now that you really kind of understand narcissism, that you feel like you're seeing it in more and more people, situations, news stories? And does that give you pause? May make you wonder, like, come on, everybody can't be narcissistic. So maybe it's a me thing. So let's take on this issue because it's a big one. It's one I'm hearing from more and more folks. Once you really understand what narcissism is as a personality style, and you start seeing it as a pattern, you may start noticing the behavioral pattern or the attitudinal pattern in other people. Folks that you may have been giving a free pass to. He's just a big talker. They don't mean it. Or she had a rough start. Or it's been a tough year for them. That now, in fact, you're seeing it more clearly. And you become aware that actually, that perhaps you came into awareness of narcissism because of one primary relationship that was causing a lot of pain and heartache for you. And then once you got it, really got it, you actually started seeing it in other people that weren't even like, you weren't even taking as much notice of their behaviors. And instead of that feeling like a sense of tremendous liberation, yeah, great, I get it, I see it now, I can honor what I'm seeing and step away. Instead, many folks will say, it can't be all of these people. Maybe I was the problem all along. It's really arrogant of me to think this. So what's the truth? Here's the thing. It's very rare for a person to have just one toxic or narcissistic person in their lives. It tends to be a bit of a clustering effect. And this is really pronounced if it started for you in childhood. There are many issues that come out of growing up in a narcissistic family, but most pointedly, one of the worst issues is that coming from or growing up in a narcissistic family means that you get acculturated to narcissism. You become assimilated to it. Invalidation, gaslighting, manipulation, all of it almost goes unnoticed. Only years later, once it kind of starts burning you out or you encounter it in adulthood and you finally get the narcissism decoder ring, only then are you able to look back maybe more clearly at what your family of origin was about. But this indoctrination means that you don't take note of how toxic these patterns are once you start encountering them in adulthood. That's not to say they feel good, but they may not register as a problem. Selfishness and entitlement might almost feel expected. So when people behave like this, you may not like it, but you may not even notice it. And it may be simply taken as, well, this is how people are. Throw some trauma bonding in there, and the familiar toxic or narcissistic patterns get justified, and the old patterns of being what the other person needs you to be so you can get your attachment needs met ends up in a not very good place. As a result, many unhealthy people may pile up in your life. And then, as you start to learn about narcissism, and especially if you're able to distance from or end relationships with the most problematic narcissistic people in your life, you may find that you have unearthed more unhealthy people, but that they may have gone unnoticed for a while in your life. You may have also become quite savvy at picking out the pattern in brand new people in your life. But some of those old patterns, like self-doubt and self-blame, they don't fade easily. So even as your intuition and knowledge are picking up these unhealthy patterns, you may wonder if it's you and whether your sensitivity is too strong. Survivors of narcissistic abuse often remain concerned about their issues with trust. Narcissistic relationships are about betrayal. So as a result, trust gets eroded, and it's really difficult to build it in new relationships. So as time goes on and you're having more and more difficulty trusting people, you may wonder if you're taking note of different people's behavioral patterns as being narcissistic is actually more about your issues with trust than about an actual issue with their behavior? Probably not. Let's start with the issue that the proliferation of narcissism out there is not a small number of folks. And remember, I can't put too fine a point on this. I am not talking about narcissistic personality disorder. Not. I am talking about people with a sufficient presence of narcissistic traits for their behavior to be a problem. I don't know. Who knows if they meet criteria for the personality disorder? It doesn't matter. My spitball on the number is probably around 20% of folks, maybe a little bit higher in major metropolitan areas like LA or New York or London, but that's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 people. Take account of the number of people you know in your life and divide by 5. You know 20 people, 4 of them may have some really difficult, jagged personalities. And as I think on this, I'm thinking of the people I have the most contact with. A quick straw poll of 10 people I know. I hit 2.5. I'm on the fence about one of them. Give it a try and you're going to see that number of 1 in 5 people who have significant presence of narcissistic personality traits and behaviors. It's about right, right? Now, just as we justified patterns in our narcissistic relationships, convincing ourselves that maybe we are being too critical by thinking about the potential narcissism of people we know or are meeting, maybe that's too judgy. That can mean that we keep sticking around people who aren't good for us until we're convinced. I liken it to one of those haunted houses where you may step up to the scary thing until it makes a noise and then you shriek and jump back. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we need to stick around long enough for the scary thing to happen. It's not good for us though, right? Someone like me, I tend to overcorrect. I think and deal with narcissism too much in my professional life. So if I experience any of that entitled posturing, non-self-aware, arrogant, snobby stuff, I tend to cut bait pretty fast. That may not be for everyone, but before you talk yourself out of something you're aware and you see the patterns, or wait to see if it was what you actually thought it was, and by actually testing it out or getting scared by it, remember that that might mean that you're still gaslighting yourself. I mean, listen, folks, someone telling you, I don't know, that your favorite TV show sucks when you meet them at a party, or someone who says that they have a different political party affiliation than you, or someone that yammers on about their expensive car all night, even those things may be annoying or they may be off-putting, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're narcissistic. You have to watch someone rather carefully and for a minute to genuinely determine how unhealthy their patterns are in the long term. For example, are they listening to you or anyone else? Do you notice a tone of contempt or dismissiveness in their voice? Are they uncomfortable when the conversation's not about them? Are they snobby? I mean, snobbishness in and of itself may not be narcissism, but let me tell you this, I'm always willing to take the bet on that. I abhor snobbishness, and it is one of those patterns that almost always seems to have narcissism behind it. But those things, those questions to ask yourself when you meet someone, you can learn some of that stuff pretty early on. And remember, narcissism is about process more than it's about content. How the person is rather than exactly what they say. Sometimes that expensive car talking person is just like a little kid who's talking about a new Lego set. But that person may also be willing to hear other people's thoughts and feelings, may not judge other people for not being as car focused as them. They may just be excited about their new car. We tend to get lost in the low-hanging fruit of what people talk about instead of focusing on how they talk about it. So be judicious with this word narcissism. It's overused, so it's losing its meaning. Don't get caught up in trying to find all the narcissistic people in your midst, or trying to figure out if someone is indeed narcissistic 10 minutes after meeting them. But instead focus on whether their behavior feels uncomfortable and invalidating. And if it does, that should be enough of a reason to at least step back, step away, slow down, or get out. So don't doubt yourself. If you are new to the, oh damn, I just recognized my blank is a narcissistic person, and now I'm noticing it in lots of other people, You may just be in the midst of the acute cleanup phase. The best way to figure out if someone's behavior patterns are unhealthy is to take it slow. Pay attention to the how and not just the what. Pay attention to your body. And then you don't need to do an about face and march out if you think someone's narcissistic, but you can slowly disengage. You can watch them from a distance and recognizing that honoring these new signals within yourself may be a new experience for you. Pay attention. The best way to avoid bringing more narcissistic people into your life or to make the existing narcissistic abuse you are experiencing worse is to nip it in the bud whenever possible. And maybe these folks are not fully narcissistic per se, but rather there are patterns here that have been a problem in the past in other relationships. You really have to ask yourself, do you really want to do this again? So yeah, it kind of doesn't feel good to feel like, oh, I'm seeing this more and more. The tendency of a lot of folks is to wonder, is this me? Probably not you. It's a little bit more common than a lot of us dreamed. And there's, again, you don't have to do the about face. You can slow it down, pay attention. But as the signs pile up, by taking it slow, hopefully you haven't engaged so much that when you do step away, there's minimal muss and fuss. Thanks again.